First things first, boy, things took a weird turn in Cleveland yesterday as Odell Beckham Jr. played his last game for the Browns. It's been a long time coming, but Jordan Love gets his first NFL start this weekend after Aaron Rodgers tests positive for COVID. Well, Packers fans love what they see from Jordan. And it's Thursday, which means Chris Broussard is putting guys under duress. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to First Things First. Jenna Wolfe alongside Nick Wright, Kevin Wilds, and the aforementioned Chris Broussard. Well, then, Brew, give us your bud list. Give us a hint. Mahomes has been on it almost every week. Is that a name we're going to see today?
Well, look, I'm not going to give it away, but there are a few of Nick's favorite quarterbacks on it. How about that? A few guys he's talked up over the years. They made the list. So
how about that?
Now that's a hint.
Tom Brady.
That's what I call a
On
good
alert.
Maybe. We'll get to all that in a second. We got to start with the big news out of Green Bay yesterday. Three-time MVP Aaron Rodgers tested positive for COVID-19, ruling him out for Sunday's showdown with the Chiefs. The news of Rodgers being unvaccinated was news, considering the quarterback hasn't been following all the protocols for unvaccinated players, something the league is now taking a look at. The NFL issuing this statement yesterday. The primary responsibility for the enforcement of COVID protocols within club facilities rests with each club. Failure to properly enforce the protocols has resulted in discipline being assessed against individual clubs in the past. The league is aware of the current situation in Green Bay and will be reviewing the matter with the Packers. Now, just to add another wrinkle to all this, listen to what Aaron Rodgers said back on August 26th when he was asked about his vaccination status.
Are you vaccinated, and what's your stance on vaccinations?
Yeah, I've been immunized. There's a lot of conversation around it, around the league, and a lot of guys who have made statements, and I've made statements, owners who made statements. There's guys on the team that haven't been vaccinated. I think it's a personal decision. I'm not going to judge those guys. There's guys that have been vaccinated that have contracted COVID. So it's an interesting issue that I think we're going to see played out the entire season.
Well, we're watching it play out as Aaron Rodgers now not playing this weekend. Nick, what was your reaction to the news yesterday?
All right, it's multi-layered. First of all, let me say this. Since Aaron Rodgers is an unvaccinated individual, on behalf of the show and for everyone, we all hope he's fine, that he has no serious health complications, because due to his lack of vaccination, the odds of COVID going left for him, even as a healthy, relatively young person, are higher, obviously, than if he had been truly vaccinated. But I don't want to I'm sick of arguing with people about vaccinations. I don't have the energy for it at this point. I want to discuss responsibility in team sports, because this is an obvious and clear selfish move if you're the most important person in a franchise in a team sport. And we have all decided almost collectively as a society, Broussard, that athletes in team sports are going to have to do things that they might not want to do for themselves because it's what's best for the team. I remember Boomer Esiason criticizing a baseball player for not making his wife have a C-section because he's going to miss 2 baseball games. Aaron Rodgers might miss 2 football games. And speaking of the birth of children, you guys remember the conversations that have been had on shows like this about football players and whether or not they should be at the birth of a child? Here's a great tweet, not from a person or a pundit, from a team. Joe Flacco's wife gave birth to the couple's child about 30 minutes ago. Flacco will play. There was a response, oh my goodness, was Flacco there? Well, the Ravens, what did they say to that? Baltimore Ravens, no, he was warming up. No, he wasn't at the hospital. Give me a break. He had some calisthenics to do before our big matchup against the Browns. Guys, we have told pro athletes you can't be in the hospital with your wife because you put the other 52 guys in jeopardy. You can't give Aaron Rodgers a pass for putting the other 52 guys in jeopardy, Broussard, when he could have simply, now he could have still gotten COVID, we know that, but he wouldn't be subjected to miss 10 days. He potentially could be back for the Chiefs game and certainly be back for the Seahawks game. So just how about that? How about it's just a selfish move by the best player and most important player on the team?
No, I hear you, Nick, and you use the word selfish. I'm going to use another word, deceit. That's what bothers me, even maybe angers me about this situation with Aaron Rodgers. We saw the clip. He was downright deceitful in August at that press conference. All right, he simply was. He purposely misled the media and the public to believe that he was vaccinated. Now, I believe he thinks he's immunized, like whatever guru he went to see out in Southern California or wherever he was at in the wilderness, whatever he did, I'm sure he believes it's effective. But he knew when he was asked that question about are you vaccinated, and immunized is a synonym for vaccinated, he knew what he was doing, answering the question in a way that would lead everyone to think something that was not true. And then he doubles down and says, you know, I'm not going to judge those guys who weren't vaccinated. Correct. As if he's not one of those guys. So the deceit Correct. Just bothers me. And I have more respect for Kirk Cousins, Lamar Jackson, Carson Wentz, even Kyrie Irving. Kyrie wasn't that forthcoming. He was kind of forced into it, but still. Those guys came out front, yes, I'm unvaccinated, and they faced the fire, okay? Aaron didn't do that, and I've really enjoyed, whilst the transparency that Rodgers has showed us this season. I said a couple weeks ago, he just seems to be in a great mental space, and it's good to see. But this throws all of that into question. Now this makes him come off like a phony, and it's just not a good look at all.
Yeah, so I'm going to echo Nick's sentiments, two of them. One, I hope Aaron Rodgers is okay. And two, I'm also tired of talking about the difference between vaccines and holistic remedies. I am neither a doctor nor a charlatan, so I'm not really, an expert to represent either side. So, Nick, I want to talk about the deceitfulness that Broussard referenced. The idea here that he's always kind of like playing this cat and mouse game with the media. And when he's not playing for the Packers, he's sort of at war and complaining about the media and his treatment of the media. Oh, you guys take things out of context. I said one thing. Like, he knew exactly what he was doing. He tried to score a point, which I think he thinks he did because he could have clarified this at any point. And the idea that this is anything except deceitful is foolish. If you were unfairly accused of robbing a bank, and I said, hey, did you rob the bank? And he said, yeah, I'm rich now. Your lawyer would be like, whoa, 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 it was investments. It was, he's parsing words. He just said, yeah, I'm rich now. Hey, did you have coffee this morning? Yeah, I'm energized. No, whoa. I didn't say I drank coffee. I'm energized from robbing the bank. Hold on, what? No, so doubled back. So look, that part bothers me the most out of all of this. It's the deceitfulness. It's the cat and mouse game with the media. It's the fact that he's misled everyone for 8 weeks now or a few months since August. And here's the other thing, Nick. When did he realize, he thought he was so clever. Now this has happened, and now he didn't realize that we were going to reference that press conference? It was a very temporary
No, I think he thought
deception.
He wasn't going to get COVID. No, I think he thought he wasn't. We only found out because he got COVID. If he doesn't get COVID, we don't find out. And I think Rodgers deserves a very similar criticism to Kyrie on this. Because just like Kyrie, he's putting his team in a brutal spot. And I would argue, just like Kyrie, he was cagey about it. I think Kyrie, the only reason Kyrie ever spoke on this was because of the New York City mandate, right? Because it was going to be obvious he wasn't vaccinated, because he was going to miss half of his team's games. And even when it came out, Kyrie was all, that's a personal decision. Respect my privacy, respect my privacy. Right. We still haven't gotten good rationale on that from him. But I do have to say, yes, the deception is obvious. So the conversation almost goes to, Broussard, what is the root of the deception? And I got to give credit to Cowherd, because Cowherd has been on this for, the better part of a decade, which is Aaron Rodgers has an allergy to criticism. And he is smart enough and knows enough to know that if he came out and said, because the Packers are saying he's been wearing the masks in the facility, been doing all the things he's supposed to do. I don't know if I believe him or not, but that's what they're saying. The only reason to lie there is because he knows he would be the subject of criticism. So whatever he said in that press conference, we still get to this moment here where he's missing a football game. But the commentary surrounding it would have been far different. And Rodgers didn't want to be lumped in to the group with MC anti-vax in Buffalo, with Kirk Cousins, with Carson Wentz. He didn't want to be. That's not his brand. Rodgers is a pretty, as far as NFL quarterbacks go, progressive guy. He's a Hollywood guy. He didn't want to. Now, maybe we should have been paying more attention, Broussard, a year ago when he was talking about chemtrails. And maybe if you know anything about, the people he's been hanging out with in those Hollywood circles, a lot of them, I'm sure, go to a guru instead of a doctor, at least according to their own public statements. Maybe we should have seen this one coming. But the only reason to lie is because he wanted to avoid the criticism. And that's been a criticism of him, that he can't handle criticism, Broussard.
I hear you, and that makes a lot of sense. There's no question about it. But I don't think he would have gotten a ton of criticism. Is anybody criticizing Lamar Jackson, really? Kirk Cousins, you deal with it for a day, maybe a couple days, and that's it. Nobody's really killing Kirk Cousins or Carson Wentz.
That's right.
Cam, when he wasn't vaccinated, So I don't even know. I think you're right about his allergy to criticism, but I just don't know. This was a very small victory, as Wild said, for a very short amount of time, and it was just completely unnecessary.
Look, Cam was criticized, though, when he did miss the game. And the other little wrinkle to this as well is how many people he's exposed within the organization, who he's been with in the last couple of days, too, and that's going to factor in. All right, much more on this coming up in just a little bit. We got to head to Cleveland now. The other big story yesterday, OBJ was told to stay away from Browns practice yesterday after his dad just absolutely trashed Baker Mayfield on social media. Is Cleveland going to cut ties with Odell before this Sunday's game? We'll talk about that next. First things first. Drawing a blank now. Here we go, the latest on Odell Beckham Jr. The Browns receiver was reportedly told yesterday not to come to practice. This after his father posted an 11-minute video on social media showing all the different times that Odell's been open and not targeted. Was not a great look for Baker in all of that. Head coach Kevin Stefanski went so far as reportedly telling his players that OBJ, quote, isn't on the team right now. In a word, it's messy. Hey, Broussard, if Cleveland cuts ties, Odell's next team should be blank.
All right, now look, I would not cut him, but if they do cut him, Nick, you're going to like this. The Kansas City Chiefs. Can you imagine OBJ in Kansas City? It would be just what the doctor ordered, at least on the offensive side of the ball. Alongside Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, I'll even throw in McCole Hardman. My goodness, we've had our own Michael Vick tell us repeatedly how much the Chiefs miss Sammy Watkins. OBJ could obviously replace Sammy Watkins and then some, because I don't believe he's washed. There's just not a connection between him and Baker. But also, this is important. Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill have the clout. They have the stature within the league where I believe OBJ would respect them. He wouldn't go in there thinking, I got to be number one. Wouldn't obviously be able to complain about Patrick Mahomes maybe not targeting him enough. And in fairness, I don't know what OBS, how the connection between OBS and OBJ was. But in fairness, all the reports are that OBJ has not been a problem within the Browns facility, except for maybe that atom bomb that was dropped this week. Okay, so I like him in Kansas City. I think if he is released and clears waivers, Browns got to pay him. The Chiefs, man, go get this done. Pronto.
So, look, I know you have a lot of place for your sports news, and you specifically come to us, the audience, because we give you a little bit extra. So I'm here with some tech news as well. There was an internet outage from New Haven all the way up to Portland, Maine. Everyone's like, what's going on, Wilds? So I dug into it. Turns out all the computing power in all of New England was busy making Photoshops of Odell Beckham and Mac Jones. It took a lot of computing power and ended up knocking down the system. So my answer is the Patriots. And now you're thinking, oh, Wilds, why would Odell want to go with Mac Jones? Oh, he just dinks and Dunkin' Donuts. Well, here's why. Can we show the statistic? Again, this took a lot of internet computing too, because we had to dispel some untruths out there in the world, propagated from Nick Wright. Mac Jones has the exact same average depth of target as Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. So Odell, I know you're a loyal watcher of the show. We've already got the jerseys cooked up. We've got the Photoshops. You want to come to hang out with Bill Belichick, the greatest coach in the entire history of sports? You come out over to Foxborough, my friend.
Okay. This is embarrassing for the show. Because what we have here is two men with an agenda. Broussard is doing his best to salvage his Chiefs Super Bowl pick. Meanwhile, Wilds is just going to say, hey, every good player should go to my favorite team, the Patriots. I, on the other hand, as the conscience and, let's be honest, the statistical brain of the show, has gone through this soberly, and we're going to go through it. Okay. So if Odell gets to pick his team, just cross out all the bad teams. Just cross them out. Then cross out all the teams with bad quarterbacks. Cross them out. And then then we are going to cross out teams that wouldn't be interested in Odell because their wide receiver room is full. So that's like the Bills. You've got MC Anti-Vax, Emmanuel Sanders, Stephon Diggs. The Titans with Julio and AJ Brown. Cowboys, obviously. The Bucks, the Cardinals, the Rams, all those teams. I would argue the Chargers with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. So cross those teams out. All right, so who's left? So you have Baltimore, which makes a lot of sense because of the need at wide receiver. But does Odell want to be? I'm sure he likes Lamar, but we all see some of the limitations. You have Cincinnati. The LSU connection there. But they actually have three really good wide receivers and one superstar wide receiver. We can cross them out. Vegas seemed like an option, but right now there's going to be a new coach there next year. Obviously, the tragedy involving the receiving corps right now, we're going to cross them out. Green Bay is where I had been saying Odell should go to, but Green Bay could have traded for him a few days ago, and they didn't. They seem very content with Devontae, Cobb, Lazard. So that leaves one team. It's a team that showed a need at wide receiver this year because they took a flyer on a guy who'd been out of football for 4 years. The only team left is the Chiefs, guys. That's just what the data says. They tried Josh Gordon. It hasn't worked out. I'm just telling you right now, when you break it all down, the only team that makes sense is the Kansas City Chiefs. They're a playoff team. They have a great quarterback. They have a great coach. They have a need at receiver. They have shown that they would bring in a receiver. They brought in Josh Gordon. Jenna Wolfe, I'm just telling you, when you input the data, what it spits out is the Chiefs. I'm just
the statistical brain on this.
Sober,
you are
emotionless
just those
analysis.
first 3 minutes.
Statistical
gone to your
brain.
Chiefs.
Well, speaking of the Chiefs that we just spent 3.5 hours getting to Nick's answer on, Patrick Mahomes has been a mainstay on Chris Broussard's Under Duress list.
Explaining the steps of the study.
We loved it. It was great. And we love getting a peek inside that very complicated but beautiful brain of yours, Nick Wright. Will Mahomes be featured on Broussard's Under Duress list again headed into Sunday's showdown with the Packers? Find out next. I jest. I actually love hearing you speak. Here we go, guys. Time for Chris Broussard's Under Duress list, the Bud list. Bud list, as we like to call it when we're short on time, which is right now. So it's the Bud list. It's been a week in the NFL. Seems like we get a new piece of news every hour. This guy's in, this guy's out, this guy's moving on. So before we kick off week 9 tonight, Chris Broussard, tell us which 5 players are under the most duress entering this week.
All right, Jenna, thank you. All right, players and Nick, remember this. Being on the Bud list is not an insult. It is an inspiration. You're going to have a big week coming up. Except for number 5, because he's not playing, but still makes the list. New York Jets quarterback, the rookie, Zach Wilson. I know you're saying, wait, how is he on the list? He's not playing. Boy, oh boy, is he under duress. There is a Hall of Famer literally going for his job. Okay, maybe not a gold jacket Hall of Famer, but Mike White's jersey and football are in the Hall of Fame. Yes, they are displayed in Canton. He completed 37 passes last week in his debut, most by any quarterback ever in their debut. He threw for 405 yards. He's only the second quarterback since 1950 to throw for that many yards in their first start. Oh, and Robert Saleh, the head coach, not once, but twice held press conferences to leave the door open that Mike White could end up being the starter long term instead of Zach Wilson. Oh, and the media in New York has been referring to him in some articles on some radio shows in the same breath as Tom Brady, who obviously 20 years ago famously replaced Drew Bledsoe. Now, of course, Mike White is not Tom Brady, but
who knows?
Zach Wilson is not yet Drew Bledsoe either. So if White goes out and is tremendous against Indianapolis this weekend, we have a full-blown QB controversy in New York. At number 4, Marlon Humphrey. I'm going to the defensive end of the ball. Now, look, this could have been the entire Ravens defense because they're shockingly 25th in the league in defense. All right, that's horribly. But the pass defense is what's really atrocious. They're dead last in pass defense, giving up 296 yards a game. Marlon Humphrey, the quarterback, is a 2-time Pro Bowler the last 2 years, in fact. And he has kind of become emblematic of their issues. His coverage has left something to be desired. He was owned last week by the rookie 2 weeks ago, by the rookie Jamar Chase from Cincinnati in that 41-17 rout by the Bengals. And he hasn't been tackling well. And that's a big problem for these Ravens. They can't tackle. All right, they're giving up, get ready, 1,170 yards they've given up after the catch. That's worst in the league. All right, so Marlon Humphrey, you got to start tackling better. So do your teammates, because you guys became only the 3rd team ever to allow 3 400-yard passing games in your first 7 outings. Bounce back, guys. You got a shot if you do. At number 3, Justin Herbert. It was all good 3 weeks ago, but it ain't all good now. All right, remember 3 weeks ago? Coming off big victories. Cleveland, Vegas, Kansas City. I don't know if that was a big victory or not, but it was at the time. Kansas City. And now they've lost their last 2. And Justin Herbert, who some were comparing even favorably to Patrick Mahomes, saying he was now the class of the AFC, not Mahomes. Justin Herbert's averaged 209 yards on 53% passing with 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions over his last 2 games. He's got to bounce back.
Yep.
He is under duress. All right, at number 2, speaking of Patrick Mahomes, Nick, I hate to do it. He deserves to be on here again. Patrick Mahomes. All right, we know they coming off an uninspiring and unimpressive victory over the New York Football Giants. These next 3 weeks could very well determine their season. All right, you got Green Bay, you got Las Vegas, you've got Dallas. All right, and they caught a break, Jenna. They caught a break, obviously, with Aaron Rodgers being out with COVID. There is absolutely no excuse, none whatsoever, for a healthy Chiefs team to lose to Green Bay. None. And so Patrick Mahomes, we know, League high 10 interceptions. That's only one fewer than he threw the last 2 seasons combined. 7 straight games, his last 7,
really
with a
good.
pick. The last 2 weeks, Nick, 1 touchdown, 3 turnovers, 2 interceptions, and a fumble. All right, so Patrick Mahomes,
that's enough.
I believe
Who's
this
one?
will inspire
Let's keep it
him
moving. That's
to
enough.
a big game.
That's enough.
All right,
That's
number
enough.
one.
Mahomes, enough.
Number 1, another guy you're high on, Baker Mayfield. Now, you could argue Baker should be number 1 even without the OBS/OBJ controversy. All right, but you add that on to it with the shoulder injury, and he's lost his last 3 starts. Now you add on the blunder reel that OBS put out there, and now about 700,000 people have watched it, and it made Baker look like a dunce, like he couldn't throw the football, like he couldn't find the open man. All of that is putting the duress on Baker, not to mention they need a W. All right, they're 4-4 at the bottom of the AFC North, facing Cincinnati. They better win this game. Baker Mayfield is the most under duress of all the players in the NFL this week.
I got to tell you, Broussard, last week, I erased the whole list. You had been out celebrating your birthday with those strawberries you like so much, and you didn't put enough time and effort into it. Let's just be honest. This week, on the other hand, outstanding work. This is a great list.
Wow.
This is such a great list. I'm really, the only way that I can edit anything is by breaking the rules. It says players under duress. I'm going to add a coach because his impact on why we're not seeing a certain player. I'm going to add Sean Payton because I feel like there have not been nearly enough stories, articles, not enough commentary about what happened to Michael Thomas. So let me just tell a very quick story here. Michael Thomas, rookie season, 92 for 1137, catches yards. Next year, 104 for 1245. The next year, 125 for 1400. The next year, 149 for 1700. The next year, 40 for 438. And the next year, 0 for 0. So what happened to Michael Thomas? What happened to Michael Thomas is Sean Payton let his ego get ahead of winning, and he tried to score 40 points on Tom Brady and the Bucs in week 1 last year. And since then, Michael Thomas's career has been forever altered. There's no getting around it. That if people don't remember, the Saints are up by 2 scores. By the way, the play before Michael Thomas got hurt, Sean Payton called a double pass. There's 2 minutes left. He called a double pass to try to stick it to the Bucs. There's 2:20 left. The Bucs are out of timeouts, and the Saints are trying to score. They could have taken knees. And Michael Thomas suffers a brutal ankle injury, tries to come back last year, is not the same, is not going to play this year. So not only is Peyton under duress because we're going to get to see his favorite cosplaying quarterback for the next month or so in Taysom Hill, but you had the most prolific, productive receiver in football. And because you were trying to send a message to Tom Brady and Bruce Arians in a game you had already won, you may never have him again. So especially with the news that Michael Thomas Broussard's out for the year, I think that Sean Payton's got to be feeling it because it was a totally unnecessary injury.
Great call.
No, you make a great argument, Nick, and I'm going to give you this. If it was coaches under duress, Sean Payton would be right there. So not a bad take at all. Wilds?
Appreciate that.
Oh, I'm going to add just one, Broussard. My old friend, and this hurts my heart. I'm adding my old friend, the 2019 Defensive Player of the Year, Stephon Gilmore. My guy, Bill Belichick, traded Gilmore to Carolina, made his debut last week, had an interception. But now he's got to be put in the blender by Mac Jones. Now, there's 2 ways this plays out. Maybe, if you're a Panthers fan, it's like when Belichick released Lawyer Malloy. Lawyer Malloy went to Buffalo, showed the Bills everything the Patriots were going to do, and delivered Bill Belichick the worst loss of his Patriots tenure, 31-0 on opening day. We ended up winning the Super Bowl, but regardless. Or it goes the other way, that Bill Belichick knows so much about Gilmore, that he treats him like Tom Brady. That we saw Tom Brady go into Foxborough, be like, oh, geez, I'm running up against a guy who knows all of my tendencies, everything I'm good at and everything I'm not good at. And Tom Brady had his worst game as a Buck against Bill Belichick. So I think it's going to go that way. I think Bill Belichick knows more about Gilmore than Gilmore knows about Belichick, and he'll have a bad game, and Mac Jones will cook him up, Broussard.
Cook him up.
You know I'm a Mac Jones fan. In fact, I'm a bigger Mac Jones fan than you are, Wilds. I never jumped off the bandwagon, no matter how briefly. But who's the Mac? I don't question Mac. What receiver's going to exploit Stephon Gilmore? OBJ is not yet there. He's not walking through that door, certainly not before Sunday. All right, so what receiver is going? That's my problem with the Stephon Gilmore take. You got an answer for that?
Yeah, I know we got to go to medals, but Jenna, look for N'Keal Harry, who wasn't traded, wanted out of New England, said, oh man, you know what? I don't want out of New England. I love New England. The foliage, so beautiful here. Yeah. Wow, Mac Jones is great.
But there's no technology. But there's no Wi-Fi.
N'Keal Harry is going to cook up Stephon Gilmore. Take that one to the bank and with a lighter so you can set your money on fire.
It's all right.
N'Keal Harry.
That's right alongside that
Defensive Player of the Year.
Upset alert.
Hell of a take.
Nick's got some NBA medals to give
Lions
out.
Upset
Mavs
alert.
Spurs. Solid performance out of Nick's adult Slovenian son, Luka Doncic. 23 points, 12 rebounds. Not his best shooting night. Went 3 of 12 from deep. So Luka just missing out on a medal. Nick, which 3 guys were podium worthy last night?
Well, the podium always proves to be bias-free. I leave my son out to include a man that allegedly I don't respect, Nikola Jokic. Look at Nikola Jokic. Could he become the worst back-to-back MVP ever? We will discuss later in the year. Jokic, 34, 11, and 5, and I know they lost. It's not his fault. Hey, Michael Porter Jr., try to score more than 10 points a game on like 30% shooting. Team kind of needs you now, buddy. Jokic gets the bronze. Silver medal, Paul George. Nobody cares about the Clippers this year because they're not very good because Kawhi's not there. Paul George is saying, I'm doing everything I can, America. Playoff P, pandemic P, I spit on those. Look at him, 32, 6, and 8, and a nice win over the spry Timberwolves. And then the gold medal. Again, bias-free here. Nick, you hate the Nets. Nick, you don't give Durant respect. If the season ended today, Kevin Durant would sit atop the pyramid. He's been the best player in basketball this year, and it has not been close. 32, 7, and 5 on he's shooting nearly 60% for the year. He's doing it effortlessly. Jenna, there is a bias-free medal stand, as they always are, from last night in the NBA.
Solid podium, Nick. Solid podium, which followed a solid under duress list. Great segment by everyone, except for the N'Keal Harry and the Stephon Gilmore, but that was still great. Let's head back to Cleveland. The Odell Beckham situation is taking new twists and turns every minute. Will the Browns end up cutting ties with OBJ before Sunday? Talk to these guys about it next. First things first. Back here with our coach, Mangini. Talk to him in a second. You know, Fox Sports is proud to support our nonprofit partner, Up to Us Sports, in launching its Thanks Coach campaign today to honor the important role that coaches play in the lives of youth, both on and off the field. You can post using the hashtag ThanksCoach and visit uptous.org to learn more. And with that, we do welcome in our favorite coach, Eric Mangini. Coach, thanks for being with us. We are talking the latest on OBJ, mainly because you're there in Cleveland, so we figured let's talk about OBJ since he is also, at least right now, in Cleveland. One day after OBJ's dad trashed Baker Mayfield on social media, Odell was told not to worry about attending Wednesday's Browns practice. One report had head coach Kevin Stefanski telling his team that Odell is, quote, essentially not on the team right now. The team... some pick to get to the AFC title game, now mired in drama. So what does Baker Mayfield make of all of this? Take a listen.
Are you hurt that this is the route he chose to voice his frustration?
Hurt? No. Surprised? Yes. I think there's different things that, play a factor into it. I've had conversations with his dad before, man-to-man, face-to-face, and I was pretty surprised by the video and, you know, the intentions and the feelings behind it. I'd be lying if I said otherwise, but hurt? No, I'm good. I'll be all right.
Baker, one of the allegations that was made yesterday was that you're deliberately not throwing Odell the ball on purpose. Like, what do you make of that?
It's deliberately not throwing the ball to an extremely talented player that I've done a lot of work with is it's an opinionated statement. I'll say that. If he's back, then we'll work through it and do whatever it takes. I can put my ego and pride to the side to win, because that's all I care about is winning. But if not, then we'll roll with the guys we have out there.
Clearly, Browns and Odell's representation trying to figure out next steps. Kevin Wildes, you said yesterday the Browns should cut Odell. Is that an inevitability at this point?
I mean, goodness gracious, I hope so. Poor Baker. When you're being asked, Coach, hey, are your feelings hurt? And you're basically like, no, I was surprised. Like, his feelings were hurt. You tell me if I'm wrong, Coach, but I think distractions you're not a huge fan of, especially distractions for a guy who is 93rd in yards and 127th in receptions and has the same amount of touchdowns as you as I do this year, which is 0. You did get one against the Panthers that one game, so you have 1. I still have 0. So here's the thing. They're either going to ice him, cut him, or try to claw back some money and then cut him. I think he should go to Foxborough, but either way, I think if this relationship and this connection between OBJ and Baker was going to work, it would have worked, and we're far past that point. They need to cut their losses and move on. Do you agree?
Well, when you go, when everywhere you go, there's a problem. At some point, you got to take a step back and say, hey, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I'm the issue. And Odell's had issues wherever he's gone. And I understand that, and the Browns understood that when they initially got him. And I'm sure this isn't the first thing that's come up. However, he is extremely talented. He's your highest paid player. You have paid him a bunch of money to this point, and he still does get a lot of respect from everybody they play. I was watching the Titans game game from last week the other day, and he was getting a significant amount of double coverage, and he gets a lot of attention, and you can't, it's hard to put a price on that, and it opens other things up. So the best example here, or the best situation here, would be for them to try to figure out some way to make this work, some way to make this productive through the course of the season, because if he goes somewhere else, it may increase the harmony of the locker room, but you're getting no value. Ideally, they would have traded him. That would have been the best situation.
Coach, here's the thing. I think it's worse than you're getting nothing out of him. He probably ends up working against you. I think that one of the reasons they couldn't trade him is the teams that are in contention for the postseason or a championship that have the biggest need at wide receiver, they're almost all AFC teams. The Ravens would love him, I would imagine. Wild says the Patriots. I'm not sure, but maybe. I think the Chiefs have shown a thirst for a number 2 receiver de facto by the signing of Josh Gordon. All those teams are competing with the Browns for a wild card spot this year. So I feel like that's one of the reasons they didn't trade him, and that's why they are in a rough spot. But I think we know the trajectory this is going, Broussard. Because again, maybe his dad shouldn't have Instagrammed that video, but the video was convincing, and Odell is open a lot. And it doesn't look like Odell's a bad player. It looks like he's not getting opportunities. And Coach, and I hate to bring this up, but Coach has firsthand knowledge of what it can be like going against a player who was once great, and then everyone thought he stunk, and then he got in a better situation. And that's Randy. Can we show Randy in Oakland? People are like, he's cooked. He's done. Can we show the numbers? I think we can. It's very similar to Odell's career in Cleveland. Right. Very similar. And then Broussard, Randy's first game out of Oakland, he happened to be playing our beloved Coach Mangini's Jets, and he went 9 for $183, a score, including a touchdown where I think he ran I've never seen this route before. It was just a curl across the entire field.
And caught it in double coverage.
It didn't matter. In double coverage, just ran past everybody.
I still have PTSD.
Now, you guys did. I know you do, Coach. That was his first game. His first game out of Oakland. It's like, oh, he's Randy Moss again. That's what I think Cleveland's afraid of, Broussard. That he's going to go somewhere else. It's like, oh, he's Odell again. And so I think they might be better off just sending him home than releasing him if they can find out a way to do that without violating the CBA.
Sort of what you
Right.
said
Like
yesterday.
the Randy Moss comparison is a great one. And if I'm Cleveland, I'm like, do that next year. There is no way I'm giving you the chance to do that this year in all the places you mentioned, Nick, Kansas City, Las Vegas, Baltimore, whoever it may be. Yeah. And on top of that, because he's clearing waivers. All right, he didn't get traded because nobody wanted to take on that $8 million. So I would have to pay you $8 million to go elsewhere and cook me and maybe keep us out of the playoffs. There is no way I'm just cutting Odell Beckham Jr. to do that, all right? Unless we can come to a financial settlement where I'm only paying you $1-2 million maybe. All right, so I think I agree with you, Coach, because I'm a proponent of grown man stuff, and I get it. A lot of times in the NFL, athletic leagues, even real life, people just can't have grown man conversations. But I would sit these two down, Baker, OBJ, with Stefanski, and talk it out like men and try to make it work. That's my first thing. If we can't reconcile, then I'll put you on the injured reserve list. All right, but if I'm trying to reconcile it first, Coach, have you ever seen a situation, maybe not this bad, but a close situation where guys didn't like each other maybe, or they had some incident like this, but they were able to work it out and move forward for the betterment of the team?
Yeah, look, I've seen fistfights take place in meeting rooms, and then guys get along after that. And this is one of those situations where you're in the middle of the season, and you've got a competitive team. It's in really nobody's best interest for Odell to move on, except for Odell. So from a team perspective, from a management perspective, you want to make this work, and sometimes what you have to do is exactly what you're saying, Chris, is sit down and have the hard conversation and see if you can get to a common ground. If it ends up being the type of situation where Odell says, I won't play under this situation, or I won't do this, then at that point he's in violation of his contract, and that's a different category, and you can get money back in that scenario. But in a perfect world, you go and maximize what he has to contribute. And I know he's unhappy, and I know that there's probably an element of disruption, but you're pros, and you're in the middle of the season, and it's in everybody's best interest to move forward and try to get some place that's productive for the organization, for the team, and for each of these players.
All right, so Jenna, I know we're up against the break, but so one last comment. In Odell's Browns tenure, he has as many touchdowns as Joe Burrow has to Jamar Chase. 7 touchdowns. Jamar Chase is halfway through his rookie year. So why is that? We all know. Because Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase have a special relationship that dates back to LSU. We see them on the field, and they work seamlessly. The reason why Baker and Odell are not going to work, and I agree with you, Broussard, like, hey, talk it out man to man, but no one is going to be like, you know what, I'm okay not reaching my potential. And we know Odell cannot reach his potential with Baker. So I think the whole thing is just a symbolic gesture, a large charade that needs to just end. Odell needs to go somewhere else, like Randy Moss, to reach his potential. It's not in Cleveland.
Maybe. We'll see. It's complicated, though. And they have a game Sunday that they still have to
definitely,
prepare
Jenna.
for against Joe Burrow. Yeah, back talking Knicks Chiefs. Fox Bet Sportsbook has them favored by 7 points over a Packers team without Aaron Rodgers. I'm bummed. I missed the joke because I was talking. I feel like you guys are all laughing, and I want to laugh with
definitely
you. Probably at my expense. Okay. Oh, that's good. Just agree with me. What's the game plan to get KC back above 500? Coach going to tell you next. Did I miss the joke twice, Nick? I think I missed it twice. First things first, we're talking Aaron Rodgers now. The three-time MVP tested positive for COVID-19 yesterday and will thus miss Sunday's showdown in Kansas City against the Chiefs. So that means the 2020 first-round draft pick Jordan Love will make his first start against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. Time for one of our favorite Thursday traditions, Coach Mangini's game plan. Coach, look at you with your headset on, wearing our sweatshirt while you're also coaching. That's so awesome. Thank you for the love that you give to our show when you coach other teams. What is the game plan for the Chiefs to avoid a letdown for a Packers team without Aaron Rodgers this weekend?
Well, Jen, I think it's very generous saying that avoiding a letdown. This is a struggling team that just struggled against the Giants. I think this would be beyond a letdown. I think this could be, and I don't like to sound the alarm, but catastrophic for Kansas City if they aren't able to win. And the things I'm going to talk about aren't just about this week. It's things that I think they need to do in general to improve across the board. And I've talked a lot about dealing with success and the challenges that come with that. And the first thing they have to do is focus on what's important. And when I was with Bill Parcells, he said there's always three things that you have to overcome each week. And the first thing is you've got to overcome division from within, whether that's the offense versus the defense, the coaches versus the players, the skill guys versus the big guys. And I imagine there's an element of division from within there, with the offense being as effective as they are and the defense struggling throughout the course of the season. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the media. And really, that's taken a totally different shape since we talked about it, because it's not just all the media and how much it's proliferated, but now it's social media, it's Twitter, it's TikToks, yep. And it's not just yours, it's your family, it's your friends, and we've seen so much of that out of Kansas City, telling the fans that they're toxic, talking about on TikToks, dancing during other people's ceremonies, calling out the refs. It goes on and on. Unfortunately, family is often considered an extension of yourself, and it's challenging, but it's so unimportant. And dealing with the media is really just dealing with the outside distractions. They've got to do a lot better job of that to get to the third thing, which is the opponent. It's the opponent, and dealing with the opponent is the most important thing. So focusing on what's important is the first point. The second point is decreasing self-inflicted wounds. And in decreasing self-inflicted wounds, this is a team that leads the league in takeaways. We've talked about that, and this is a challenge because Green Bay's second in the amount of takeaways that they get, or giveaways. They lead in giveaways. Green Bay's the second in the league in takeaways. And then there's penalties. Last week they were the most penalized team. Over the last 3 weeks, they've been the third most penalized team. And the third thing is drops. They're ninth in the league in drops. So they've got to be able to decrease. I'm not even saying eliminate the self-inflicted wound. There's too many of them. Just decrease the amount of self-inflicted wounds. And the last thing is a scheme component that I think would help them moving forward. And I know it's challenging from a defensive perspective. And that's increase the volume of bunch plays. They've got a great package out of this. And they don't use it quite as often as they probably should. They're 23rd in the league at doing that. And then increase the amount of play action in the passing game. And I'm going to show you an example from the Philly game that has both a bunch play and play action. So Philly's in a split safety defense, which Kansas City gets a lot, and Philly could play 2, they could play 4, they could double team the wide receivers, but Kansas City is seeing a significant amount of this type of coverage. And this is what a bunch formation is. It's when you get 3 receivers close together, 3 eligible guys close together. It puts pressure on the defense mentally from adjustment standpoint, especially when you motion in and out of it. It creates space in man-to-man. And here's the play action component. Look at what a good job Mahomes does of giving the defense what they want. He shows them the ball. The back does a good job. He's underrated in this area because they don't do it very much. From the creative standpoint, out of that bunch, which is usually pure passing, they're going to use 2 out of 3 to protect, so they get max protection. Now you've got a 2-man route, and the play action holds Philly's linebacker, and he's actually going to move to the outside, which he should never do in this coverage, but it's enough in front of him that he doesn't adjust properly. So look at the window it creates. You've got a huge window to throw. You've got a huge window to catch. There's nobody around that gets you exactly what you want. your playmaker down the field in space against their defensive players. So if they can build on the bunch package that they already have, that'll help them significantly. They're gonna run the ball more because they're getting all these light two safety defenses, and so now the play action is going to slow down the pass rush, and it's going to help create these gaps that sometimes haven't been there, especially over the last 3 or 4 weeks. So to me, that's what Kansas City has to do across the board, not just this week, but as they move forward with the most. Yeah.
So, Coach, I want to talk about one of the first things you said. The play breakdown was extraordinary as always, and the real in the weeds Chiefs fans such as myself have been wondering why they haven't done more play action, particularly the last few weeks when they have been running the ball more. Even though you don't have to run the ball to be effective in play action, but still it helps. They haven't done it. But I want to talk about one of the first things because it's a tricky one and it's a touchy one. So when we talk about the social media aspect, so Mahomes has been pressing the last month for a lot of reasons obvious on the field. His throws seem a little off. He seems a little jittery in the pocket. The defense has been bad, all of this. But then there is also the touchy subject of he's been dealing with a lot family-wise. His brother has been in the news twice for no good reason. His mom sent out that tweet blaming his teammates for Tyreek Hill for the drop. And his wife, who he seems deeply and madly in love with, seems to be much more interested in social media than Patrick is. There's a lot of videos out there, you can see them, of Patrick just trying to eat his chips and salsa, and his wife and his brother doing TikToks. And I'm not a body language expert, but Patrick seems nonplussed by it. If you're but the touchy stuff, and my question is this, can the coaches even address that with him, or is that off limits? Can they help him with it, or is that personal life? Because we always say, you leave a guy's family alone, and nobody wants to criticize somebody's family. But Patrick's not putting these videos out. Patrick's not sending these tweets, but they all land at his feet. Is there any way the team can help him with that?
When we used to do our rookie orientation, we would spend some of the classes on dealing with friends and family. And it is such a touchy subject, but it can impact the players in so many different ways. And whether we like it or not, when our friends and our family put things out there, people assume that the player or the coach has signed off on what they put out there. And that can be a really, really difficult and, like you said, touchy topic. And people don't know how to navigate through that. So to at least have the conversation of these are some options on how to deal with it. These are some of the pressures other players have dealt with or the way they've dealt with it in the past. And then having a conversation with, hey, this is how it affects me, mom, or whether it's your wife or whoever it is. It's important, and you want your family to benefit from all the great things that are happening to you, but you don't want it to be at the cost of your ability to focus on what you have to do, which is your job.
All right, so let's focus on the actual game. Kevin Wilds, the Chiefs are now facing Jordan Love. It's not going to be Aaron Rodgers. So what would a loss mean for the Chiefs against Love in his first start?
Look, I think as bad as it would be for the Chiefs, Broussard, I think it would be that good for Jordan Love. So I'm fascinated by how Jordan Love is going to play. I think Nick is one of the guys who thinks, oh, this is the chance for the Chiefs defense to get back on track. Or it might go the other way. Jordan Love is somewhere between a rookie, because we think of him as a rookie, but he's not. So he's not graded on the Mac Jones, Justin Field, Trevor Lawrence curve. He's more just a guy making his first start who's had a long time to watch how it works. And that's our guy, Mike White and Cooper Rush, who just got big wins. Now, I know Arrowhead is a tough place to play. I don't think he's going to go in there and play phenomenally, have a Mike White-esque performance. But don't forget, Jordan Love was drafted 26. Who was drafted 6? Justin Herbert, who had to be thrown into that game in Arrowhead, played great, and took the Chiefs into overtime. Ended up losing, but that was a real coming out moment for Justin Herbert. I think there's a real opportunity with how bad the Chiefs defense is, giving up the 6th highest passer rating, that Jordan Love could come out and establish himself as the quarterback of the future for the Packers. Are you pessimistic or optimistic about Jordan Love this weekend?
I think at best Jordan Love will be mediocre, decent. At best. Okay. I think there's a good chance he's just not good at all. I mean, he's obviously in a tough situation. It helps that Kansas City defense is atrocious. So that could help him out. And you said it could be, if he is great, it could be great for Jordan Love. It could also be great for the Cleveland Browns, the Pittsburgh Steelers, any other Denver Broncos, any team out there that would like to get its hands on Aaron Rodgers. Because if Jordan Love looks great, right, maybe Aaron's available in the offseason. But I'm going to answer Jenna's question about how bad this would be for the Chiefs if they lose. There is, I got to admit, and it's not just because I picked the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl in the preseason along with Nick, but there is something inside of me that will not let me completely write them off until they are absolutely mathematically eliminated from this thing. All right, so I'm going to say this. I think it's just because of Mahomes and his greatness and some of the other talent around him. But if they lose this game, then I will be at 93% verification, a 93% verification rate that they are done. I won't go 100, but I'll be at 93% verification that they're done at 4-5 and it's over. So I don't think it's going to happen, though. The Chiefs win this game.
Jenna, quick correction, real quick, just because, you know, I'm a stickler for accuracy. Justin Herbert's debut was in San Diego when they lost. He actually beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead in Week 17. I am sorry. I apologize.
Also, a quick clarification. They haven't played a single game in San Diego in 3 years, so Wilds was wrong twice. But I'm glad you got the joke in. Go ahead, Jenna.
I was so close.
I thought you had done it on purpose.
You're so bad.
I honestly thought you did it on purpose.
No.
Oh, Wilds.
Ahead,
come on. You're better than that. Back talking OBJ. With his future murky in Cleveland, where will OBJ suit up next? First things first.
This guy.
Hot in Cleveland.
Quick, edit that out.
First things first, you know, Fox Bet Super 6 wants you to stack the cash. Last week, 5 players split more than $300,000. You could be next. Scan the QR code, download the app, and enter the free-to-play NFL Sunday Challenge contest. Make your picks, invite your friends to play as well. The more people who enter, obviously, the bigger the jackpot gets. It's fun. Play. And coming up Saturday, C.J. Stroud leading number 5 Ohio State against Nebraska. It's the big noon Saturday game of the week. It all starts with the big noon kickoff, pregame crew at 10 Eastern, and then Ohio State, Nebraska, only on Fox and the Fox Sports app. All right, time for stories to start your morning, sponsored by Ram Trucks, built to serve. And big news out of Green Bay yesterday. 3-time MVP Aaron Rodgers testing positive for COVID-19, ruling him out for Sunday's showdown with the Chiefs. The news of Rodgers being unvaccinated was actual news to us, considering the quarterback hasn't been following all the protocols for unvaccinated players, something the league is now taking a look at. The NFL issuing this statement yesterday. The primary responsibility for the enforcement of COVID protocols within club facilities rests with each club. Failure to properly enforce the protocols has resulted in discipline being assessed against individual clubs in the past. The league is aware of the current situation in Green Bay and will be reviewing the matter with the Packers. Now, just to add another wrinkle to all of this, listen to what Rodgers said back on August 26 when asked about his vaccination status.
Are you vaccinated, and what's your stance on vaccinations?
Yeah, I've been immunized. You know, there's a lot of conversation around it, around the league, and a lot of guys who have made statements and I've made statements, owners who made statements. You know, there's guys on the team that haven't been vaccinated. I think it's a personal decision. I'm not going to judge those guys. There's guys that have been vaccinated that contracted COVID. So it's an interesting issue that I think we're going to see played out the entire season.
All right, Chris Broussard, what was your reaction to the news?
Well, first of all, Jenna, as with anyone that's contracted COVID, I wish and pray for Aaron Rodgers' health. All right, I pray that he's healthy and doesn't have any problems or complications from this situation, especially with him being unvaccinated. And that said, what bothers me, maybe even angers me the most, is his deceitfulness. All right, he was just straight out deceitful about this in purposely misleading the media and the public about his vaccination status. You just showed it. Back in August, he's asked if he's vaccinated. First thing he says is, yeah. Okay, so that's a straight up lie. Then he says, I've been immunized. He uses a word that's a synonym for vaccination. I do believe Aaron Rodgers thought he was, clear from COVID, because whatever he's done, whatever, guru he may have seen in Southern California, out in the wilderness, whatever he did to immunize himself, I do believe he thought it was effective. All right, but still, he understood that the question, the way it was asked, that it would appear to everyone that he has been vaccinated officially, like many others, all of us on this show and many most in the NFL, and that would clear the whole controversy. And then he triples down when he says there are guys in the locker room on the team who haven't been vaccinated, and I'm not going to judge those guys. So separating himself from this. Yeah. So he clearly went out of his way to make everyone believe he's been vaccinated. The reports are that in the locker rooms and in the facility, he's worn a mask. So I assume his teammates knew he wasn't vaccinated. But most of the other players, Nick, in the league who aren't vaccinated have done their press conferences either via Zoom or with a mask on. And Rodgers has been doing his, in person with no mask. Again, misleading everyone to think that he's not vaccinated. Now, I have enjoyed the transparency that Aaron Rodgers has shown this season. I have felt, like I said it a couple weeks ago, he looks like he's in a great mental space. He talked over the summer about dealing with his mental health. I've been happy for him that he appears to be so happy. But now, this deceitfulness that we've just witnessed throws all of that into question. And it just comes off as phony. And there's no other way to say it.
Yeah, how could it not? How could it not? But I agree with basically everything you said. It was obviously deceitful. Aaron Rodgers knew he would get criticized if he said he was unvaccinated. Now, you can argue he shouldn't be criticized, but he knew he would have been, so he misled everyone. And I don't have the mental bandwidth anymore to try to argue with folks about the efficacy of vaccination. I just don't. What we can all, I think, agree on is, fair or not, the NFL has made it clear, if you test positive for COVID, you are going to be away from your team for a guaranteed longer period of time if you are not vaccinated than if you are vaccinated. We also know you are more likely to contract COVID if you are not vaccinated than if you are vaccinated. Those are just objective facts. One's an NFL rule, one is verifiable by any metric out there. So by making the choice not to get vaccinated, you are making the choice to put your availability to the team at risk. And Wiles, we have a long history of expecting quarterbacks in particular to be available for their teams. There's a great tweet. Can we show it? Joe Flacco, fresh off winning a Super Bowl. This is the opening of the next season. Ravens tweet. Joe Flacco's wife gave birth. The couple's child 30 minutes ago. Flacco will play today versus the Browns. NFL reporter says, oh my God, was he there? No, he was warming up. We got a big game to play against the 2013 Browns. Can't be without Flacco. He knows where his bread is buttered. Wilds, I don't want to boil down a complicated subject to something simple. But there is a level of the best abilities, availability. And Aaron Rodgers made the choice to put his availability at risk, to put the 1 seed at risk, to put a Super Bowl appearance at risk. All of it. Because he chose not to be vaccinated. Just like, by the way, Kyrie Irving has put the Nets' ability to compete for a championship at risk because he's choosing not to get vaccinated. And even though I've always been a fan of Rodgers and I've been critical of Kyrie, I'm not going to sit here and after the way we talked about Kyrie, act like Rodgers is some special case. He's not. He's not. And he was actually less straightforward about it than Kyrie was.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, say what you want about Kyrie, but he never tried to purposely mislead the media. Even before the decision was made for him to go on IG Live, he was at that outdoor game wearing a mask, and he was the only one. So it's pretty obvious what his stance was on this the whole time. And Broussard, I agree with you. The yeah and then using a synonym, that doesn't work at all. It was obviously deceitful. If I was accused of robbing a bank and they say, hey, did you rob the bank? And I said, yeah, I'm rich now. I'm like, whoa, I just made some investments. You know, some people rob banks, some people don't. It's obviously he was trying to be deceitful. But here's the other thing I think it shows. I'm going to move forward to the game now, stay on the field. It shows a confidence that I didn't think he had, that he's not going to be Wally pipped, right? Because now we get a real chance on the game of the week to see what Jordan Love can do. And we have seen people be Wally pipped, most famously, Wally Pipp himself. So we saw Matt Flynn had a great game, got signed by the Seahawks. He lost his job to Russell Wilson. We just saw Mike White come out of nowhere like, hold on, is Zach Wilson your quarterback of the future or not? Most famously, Tom Brady and Drew Bledsoe. Drew Bledsoe is no slouch. The $100 million guy, face of the franchise. What do you think the opportunity is for Jordan Love to Wally Pipp Aaron Rodgers right now, Broussard?
Well, look, if that happens, and I'm not expecting it, Jordan Love to go out there and be great, but if that were to happen, I honestly don't know how upset Aaron Rodgers would be. Obviously, Rodgers would continue to be the quarterback this season, and maybe he leads them to a Super Bowl or the NFC title game again. But if that were the case, Wilds, I think that just enables Rodgers to leave, which he may want to do anyway after the season, and go to Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Denver, wherever he might want to go. So I don't think it would really bother Rodgers that much.
Life's not always fair, and I think the opposite is more likely to happen. That in a weird way, Rodgers gets vindicated by this whole thing, even if it shouldn't have ever come to this, which is the Packers have won 7 in a row. They just won without their receivers. Jordan Love comes in, a struggling Chiefs team beats them, and then Rodgers swoops into the rescue, fresh off his, COVID quarantine, and he gets to be the hero again. I just, Jenna, don't know why he couldn't have been straightforward about it from the very beginning.
And as a result, it'll be Patrick Mahomes versus Jordan Love on Sunday. Skip and chat and keep the conversation going right now. Undisputed starts right now.